perspective?
I think so.
All right, so 7:11, let's call this meeting of the Old Saybrook Board of Education to order, and we will start the Pledge of Allegiance. So find a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and to stand one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty for all.
Very interesting.
Excellent. We'll work on that in unison for future meetings as part of the technology meeting that we're having.
We should have a flag on our screen.
I know. Well, you know what, Cree, we're going to develop this. That's a good point. I like that, actually. Maybe next meeting. We'll get that up for next meeting. All right. So first up on our agenda this evening is a report from our student representatives. So I'll hand it over to Jean-Paul and Ian, their report.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep. Yes. Yes.
So Ian and I didn't really have, obviously there's no real, events going on, but we felt just like this is a valuable time bringing student perspectives on, basically what's going on. So we have, a small list of things that we all wanted to put some student perspectives on. The first one is our transition into distance learning. So if Ian wants to start, you can start there.
And you're on mute, Ian, just so you know. I don't know, Trent, if you can unmute me.
I unmuted
him. So I think it was definitely a bit rough at first in the first couple of weeks, but I think as we start to get a good schedule built and much less work than it was the first week, I think it's much nicer and much easier for us.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing important, especially for Ian and I, since we're both seniors, a lot of our classes already had online components, especially I know in we had an online textbook in psychology, and in chemistry we had a lot of online work on the virtual classroom. So I think for higher level courses which are already very dependent on having online resources, the transition was easier than it was for other courses which are more based solely in the classroom. So I think that's something interesting.
I think a lot of teachers have also started doing extra help sessions.
Oh yeah,
Ms. Dimberg has done one every day this week, so I'm very excited for that. It's very nice to be able to interact with your teacher on more than just she's assigning work and you do the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our next topic is virtual prom.
No.
So Mr. Riffle made or I don't know who made it, but Mr. Riffle sponsored the site.
Can you talk a little bit slower? Go ahead.
For people to voice their opinions on how virtual prom would work or prom would work in general. And so there's definitely a lot of opinions going around about whether we should or shouldn't do it. But I think personally it'd be nice to see everyone again, seeing as the only person I've seen from my grade is John Pell right now.
Yeah. Right. I think that's one common thing that I've heard a lot is that people a lot of people are sad that they're missing school, but especially seniors are sad that they're missing out on such a what's a typically significant part of their senior year and their send off into college. And then kind of coupled with this, I've also seen a lot of concern that maybe even the first semester of freshman year of college might be affected, and that might end up being virtual. So I think there's a lot of I wouldn't say fear, maybe just concern going around, the class of 2020 that the effects of this pandemic, how it has interrupted everything that we basically looked forward to for a while. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but that's just how it is, right? So yeah, you're good.
Okay, so we had a meeting yesterday, I think, with Ms. Peruccio, Ms. Riffle, and Mr. A to discuss ideas for how graduation would look for our seniors. And we had a solid amount of good ideas, but I think my favorite was there was an idea about doing a parade where we do like every senior and their families in a car and go around town. And I think it'd be just really cool way to like safely gather and support our seniors.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. I think it is.
So next up we had, like obviously spring sports were like very much affected, but like Ian was talking about like staying in touch with coaches. So I know like for me with baseball, like early on it was a very abrupt change. I think I had like a baseball workout the day of, and then I think like I had a workout at like 4:30. Like the call was made to like cancel all activities on like 4 that day. So it was like a very abrupt transition, and like there wasn't really like, yeah, it was just like very abrupt to change like that. Just like, decided to end all spring sports. I think Ian could add a lot more to that.
Yeah. So in my experience on the lacrosse team, the head coach of the lacrosse team has been posting a blog and is updating it each week with like workouts for the team to do. There's also been like senior spotlights, which I think have been interesting. And there's also been commentary about where we would be in the season right now if everything hadn't been canceled. So I think it's just been a really nice way to stay in touch with everyone on the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so another big, especially for Ian and I, like both being seniors, like a big thing that everyone was really worried about was like how AP exams were going to look. They're like sweeping like dramatic changes to all of the exam formats, and they're all going to end up being online. And that's something that a lot of our teachers will also have like to be concerned about, because not only are the exam formats changed, but there are also changes to content that are going to be on the exams. So I know me, like I was kind of the whole year we were preparing for like a 2-hour exam like in person, and then like all of a sudden having it switch to 45-minute online exam, it's gonna be like a pretty interesting challenge, I'd say.
I'd agree with that. And sort of finally talking about staying motivated through even with distance learning and not having a teacher right there in front of you, making sure you do work. But I've tried to set my alarm at 7:30 a.m. and try to make sure everything's normal and keep myself going through the day.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think like thing for me that like, honestly I'd say helps is that like there isn't like a strict schedule that I could follow. I could really like one thing that like I like about this like break, I guess, is that like I could wake up or I could do work when it's convenient for me, instead of like stressing about like getting assignment done at a certain time. I could like maybe like enjoy my day more and just like schedule it out however I please. I think that's one thing that like has helped me like stay motivated, is that like I could do things on my own schedule. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that.
I think that's good for me as well.
Yeah. So any questions about anything like we talked about, or any other questions you have about living perspective on this, like anything concerning the current matters?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, any questions from the board?
This is Karina. Can you hear me? Oh, go ahead.
Hold on, Eileen. Karina was gone first. Go ahead, Karina.
No worries. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for that insightful report, and I appreciate your personal perspectives about, how you're feeling about going through this time. It's really revealing, and so that I don't know, it just makes it special to hear that from the both of you. And I just wanted to congratulate Ian on your appointment to the Naval Academy. Nice job.
You.
Very nice job.
Great job. All right, go ahead, Eileen. You had a question.
First, I was going to say congratulations to Ian as well. But I think nice report from both of you. I think the perspective really throughout the district to some extent is you have assignments and you can do them when you feel it works for you, which is similar sometimes to a college setting. Right. So you have a little bit more independence. And at the same time, it's a challenging time for everyone. And bravo for just staying focused to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Other questions for our student representatives?
I want to thank Jean-Paul and Ian for being here tonight, and also for your leadership and advocacy amongst your peers. I know that Superintendent's Principals Advisory is so important to me and to Ms. Riffle and Mr. Anastasio, because you give us the information that we need. You share the perspective from students, and I think you represent your peers so well. And I just want to say that I hope I don't embarrass you, Ian, but I do have to share that Ian spent a lot of his own personal time developing a grading practice policy that he has submitted to Ms. Riffle, Mr. Anastasio, and me for consideration. And Ian, when we announce what we're going to be doing on Friday, you're going to recognize a lot of your work.
That's so cool. Thank you.
Yeah, great job, Ian. I can't wait to hear all about it. Well, thank you guys both so much for participating, and obviously you can stay on the call for as long as you'd like, but I appreciate you sharing your insights with everybody. I know this is absolutely a different way of going about school, and especially impactful when it's your senior year. But I'm super appreciative to the work you guys are both doing. And Ian, I agree with being on a schedule. It's easy to lose track of the days and times, so we have wake up time in our house to get everybody up and online. But thank you both. I appreciate the difficulty that this must be. So hang in there, guys. I'll see you guys at graduation one way or the other.
I just wanted to jump in because part of having student representatives on our Board of Education is to have them give input. And I'm really excited to just even learn that there's been such strong interest on Ian's part to start looking at policy and how the administration can reflect on it. So really, congratulations, Ian. That's huge.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure. All right, guys. Thank you guys again. And like I said, you're welcome to stand for as long as you like, and observe the rest of the meeting. Moving on to our next item on the agenda. It's a consent agenda approving the board minutes from the April 2nd, 2020 meeting, which was a special meeting, and our last regular meeting, which was on April 7th of 2020. Can I get a motion to approve our minutes?
It's Jan. I'll make that motion.
All right, motion made by Jan Furman. Do we have a second?
Second it.
All right, so I heard both Eileen and I think Eileen jumped in ahead of you there, Karina. So Eileen Baker seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any? Okay, thank you. And any opposed? Any abstentions?
This is Al. Tara, the abstention for the April 2nd meeting.
Okay, it's a consent agenda, Alan, so it would be, for abstaining from both of those, as long as you're okay with that.
I did attend the April 7th, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so with that, it sounded like it was 8, 4, and 1 abstention, Trent.
Thank you, Tara.
All right, moving on to our next agenda item. It's course proposal for EC Environmental Science, and I'll hand that over to Jan, Amity, and Mr. Plotkin.
Yes, so I'm going to turn this over to Amity. Hopefully you can all hear me.
Yep, Jan. Now you're way good.
Okay, great, wonderful. Yes, I'm going through sets of headphones around here. I can't imagine why. So I will turn this over to Amity and Dave Plotkin, and actually I'm going to turn the next few over to Amity and Dave, and then Stacy Anderson and Sheila Riffle's also here with us this evening. You'll be able to chime in. These are curricular components. Some are new programs, some are just tweaking certain programs that were supposed to come before you very early in this month or the end of last month, but unfortunately, as you know, things got changed on us, but our folks are persistent, and they're here tonight, and they're going to talk to you about some very exciting opportunities for our students. So, Amity?
All right, we were originally scheduled for the March 10th meeting, and then we were scheduled for the special March 12th meeting, and now here we are tonight. We're really excited to finally be able to share all of this with you. This presentation, actually, Mr. Plotkin authored completely on his own, and so I'm going to primarily turn it over to him and just be the clicker on the slides. Mr. Plotkin?
Thank you, Amity, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be able to be with you. And before I begin, I just want to take a moment to thank the board and our entire district leadership team and everyone else involved at every level for the tremendous amount of support that you provided us to achieve the task of maintaining the continuity of education during these unprecedented times. Thank you all. And now to look forward, I'm pleased to propose a new course for our district and the students of Old Saybrook High School, and that course is ECE Environmental Science through the University of Connecticut. So if we could go to the next slide, Amity, slide 2. As you can assume by the title, this course's focus is on learning about environmental science. But beyond that, this course also serves a greater purpose, which adds to my excitement about it. The goals of offering this course are first to provide an avenue for students to take a very in-depth look at our unique geographic location. Some existing science courses might touch on that idea, but it becomes the focus in this course. The second goal would be to help set us apart as a district, not only by adding another opportunity for students to take a college level course, but also providing an avenue for students to become invested locally, partner with experts in a scientific field, and work on solving real world authentic issues at a local level. And thirdly, we've already begun to work with town agencies in some high school science courses, which has really opened the door to grow our relationship with people like Christine Nelson, our town planner, who has been a tremendous support already for building the possibilities of this course provides. So if we go to slide 3, Amity. This information here really builds on the previous slide, but with some student-centered language. I tried to put into words the experiences, skills, and knowledge that students will attain if they take this course. So I just want to give you a moment to review this rationale. Okay, Emily, if we are ready, I think we can go to slide 4. Slide 4 shows us 2 lists. The list on the left shows Sustainable Saybrook Actions. Sustainable Saybrook is an initiative our town is involved in. It's attempting to achieve silver recognition. We have been recognized at the bronze level by the state previously through the state's Sustainable Connecticut program. On the right-hand side are standards from our next generation science standards, the science standards adopted by our state to guide our science curriculum. The list symbolize how this course will reach into different realms, achieving the learning needs, in the world of education and the actions needed in the world of community and government. The next slide, slide 5. How does this connect to the strategic plan, this course? Some of the language here that really connects to this course are terms like state of the art. So students will be looking at actual issues and solutions in modern real time in the realm of environmental science. Innovative. The course builds community partnerships that exist and opens up the door to build additional community partnerships with different town agencies. Focused. The course takes a look at local environmental science issues. So it is hyper-focused on Old Saybrook. And engagement. Authenticity and meaningful topics will make students very interested in what we cover. And finally, meaningful, local and global connections will be made to build meaning for students in the topics that we study. Slide 6, our building goals at the high school. One of our building goals is the adoption of 21st century skills and the teaching and assessment of those skills. And the design of this course, there's no limit to which skills could be addressed, instructed directly, and measured throughout the different activities and learning activities in the course itself. Some statistics and data to support the need for this type of course from a national perspective. This comes from a survey by the National Environmental Education Foundation. And there were some surprising things that I saw when I took a look at the survey. But the one that I would like to point out is that bottom statistic about people taking action when they are aware of environmental issues. And sometimes lack of action could just be unawareness of it. And so that through this course and courses like it, we could hopefully increase that statistic. And Amity, if we go to slide 8, with this course, there are some challenges. We want to avoid competition with existing science courses and not pull enrollment from those other courses, and then to share with those courses that already exist. And of course, scheduling issues, making sure that this course fits into our high school schedule and student scheduling easily. And slide 9, some successes that I think looking forward for this course would be, as I've mentioned, building onto and creating new opportunities for community partnerships, offering personalized learning experience for students in grades 9 through 12 with this course, having a college experience in credit while at Old Saybrook High School, since it is an early college experience course through UConn, and also through the course improve our local environment and our sustainability. And finally, slide 10. Next steps are to run a pilot with the course, gather some information through that pilot, and take that information to inform decisions moving forward on implementation and any revisions that we need to make. Thank you for your consideration, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may have now.
Great, thanks a lot. Any questions from the board for Mr. Plotkin?
Baker? Go ahead. Oh, Tara, okay?
Yep, go ahead, Eileen.
I would say, David, terrific research, beautifully written, thoughtful in terms of student outcomes. Wonderful job. My question is, prerequisites for students to take this class?
There are not any prerequisites for this course.
Okay, so you can take it what year?
In theory, freshman year, you could take the course if it fits into the schedule for a student.
And so would it be a mixed group, or just because it said 9 through 12 personalized learning? So is there, it will be mixed classes offered just for freshmen, or?
It would be a mixture of students through grades 9 through 12, potentially.
Okay. All righty, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This is Karina.
Go ahead, Karina.
Thank you so much. David, thank you for the presentation. It sounds like a very exciting course, and I can sense your excitement and passion about it. Is there a particular target student that this is designed for? You know, oftentimes if, I'm trying to envision if you take this class, who's this? I'm not saying this very well at all, for that I apologize, but basically, who is your target audience?
Sure. I envision this being a course that a wide range of students might be able to benefit from, whether it's a student who wants to, before embarking off to college, wants to experience the level of a college course while still at our high school. This might be a great introduction to that college level, but it could also be a course for a student who has already taken some AP or ECE courses, who wants to focus on sciences and wants just another opportunity to build up their science experience. So I could see it in a bunch of different, for being a benefit for a wide variety of students.
Great, thank you. And I do have one other question, and that is about the pilot. when would you run the pilot this fall? And if so, would the students participating in the pilot get that college credit? And how does that work, the piloting process?
Amity, I might have to, or Sheila, I might have to defer to you on that one. I think the hope is to run it in the fall, but then beyond that, I don't want to misspeak.
Dave, I can take that.
Yeah.
I think that this is a one-year pilot, so the kids would be able to take this course next year, and then we'll look at their outcomes and how well received this course was, and sort of how the whole thing goes, and we would either continue to offer it in the following year or not, based on that information.
So this is Jan. So does that mean that the students who participate next year in the pilot, would they be eligible for college credit?
They would, absolutely. It's a pilot just for us. It's not a pilot for UConn.
Okay. And Amity, is the credit just for UConn? And then if students wanted to transfer it someplace else, are they able, or does that depend on the receiving college or university?
It depends on the receiving college or university, but I have heard anecdotally that ECE credits, because they are UConn credits, are more transferable even than AP credits.
That is probably, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is Karina. I have another question, and that is just about if this is offered as a pilot, Amity, you're probably best to answer this. If it's offered as a pilot in the fall, most kids have selected their classes for next year, and so would they then have to, how does that process work? Do they have to drop a science to pick this one up? How would they adjust their schedules?
So what's exciting about that is we always plan for the future, and our course, when our course, our program of studies went out, this course, I believe, was included at pending board approval. So it's in there, and taking it out would be the only thing that would change. If you do not approve this course and it does not go forward for next year, then we would be asking those students to look for a different science class. But I think that students already had the opportunity to sign up.
Oh, great. So you might actually have a sense of how large your pilot is already.
I don't, but I bet Ms. Riffle does. Sheila, do you know how many kids may have already signed up to try to take this course?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Can anyone hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry, I had to call in for audio, but the audio on my phone's not working. The audio on my computer is only working for me to talk, but not to hear. So with that, I'm actually looking to see if I have that information right now in terms of how many students have signed up for it and requested it.
So Eileen Baker.
So I can.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Yeah. Well, she was looking. What does ECE stand for?
Early college experience.
Oh,
good guess.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we've spread the technology issues around to everybody, Sheila.
So it makes me feel a lot better.
It made me. Do we have other questions while for Mr. Plotkin and Sheila and for Amity on this?
This is George.
Go ahead, George.
So just to be clear, so this is supposed to be a one-year course?
It is a full year course.
And so at UConn, is this a one-year course or a one-semester course?
Dave, do you know?
Yeah, at UConn, this is a one semester.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, George. So Amity and Jan, this is something that requires the board's approval?
Yes, Tara, because this is a whole new course, we are looking for the board to approve that at least the pilot year. We're happy to come back to you next year and let you know how it's going.
Okay. Other questions before we look for a motion on this?
If you have a question, if you have a student that's never taken a college course and is a freshman coming in and is interested in this, I know there's no prerequisites, but how are they going to do this with, a heterogeneous grouping?
I think the nature of the course through the style of the instructional strategies that I tend to use and that the course requires really allows for differentiation and leveling of the content that the student is exploring. So while we might cover the same topics, the depth and the support needed for a student to achieve to do well on an assignment, as a freshman, they may not have some of the research skills, and that's where my support can come in, where a senior might have those research skills already in place and can kind of fly on that research part or the scientific, whatever scientific measurements they might be taking. So I might be able to support that freshman in doing those types of skills to build up their skill set in order to be successful as they are entering as a freshman, like you said. I hope that answers your question.
First of all, it's a fantastic answer because this is so open to student interest, and it's exactly what I was hoping to hear, not just from my perspective, but educationally, it's wide open and it's based on interest, and that's terrific, and also adapting and working with students so that they can feel included depending on their levels and their variety of them. Thank you so much.
And Eileen, if I could just add, this is Jan Peruccio. What Mr. Plotkin won't say is that he has to go through some extensive training to be able to teach this class. UConn requires that. Plus, remember, Mr. Plotkin did spend some time, or quite a bit of time, teaching at our middle school. So I can't think of anyone who's better suited to be able to reach out to students of various ages with the training and the experience that he's had. And I feel like no matter what age or grade the student is in at the high school, he or she has every opportunity to be successful.
In this course, fantastic. Wow. A trainer of teachers.
Do we have any other questions? All right, not hearing any other questions, then I would look for a motion to approve the course proposal for ECE Environmental Science Pilot.
Hello, this is Alan.
All right, so I think I had a first by Eileen and a second by Alan, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor, aye?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you very much. I think, Trent, that was unanimous. And thank you so much, Mr. Plotkin, for joining tonight and presenting.
And thank you all very much for your support. I'm so excited about this course, and I can't wait to share all the great things that our students will achieve when they take it.
Fabulous.
Great work. Good luck.
Dave.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
This is Sheila. Can you hear me?
Hi, Sheila.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank Dave too. Great work on this, Dave. He also had to get approved. He had to get letters of recommendation. And I just want to second everything that Jan had said. The course currently has 17 requests for next year. 15 of which are primary requests and 2 of which, are alternate requests. And they are, the requests are mostly current sophomores and juniors. There's 1 current freshman and 1 current 8th grader looking to take the course next year.
That's great.
Nice, great cross section.
All right.
That's excellent. Thanks for getting back to us on that, Sheila.
You got it.
Well, let's move on then to our next agenda item, which is a 6 through 8 math program proposal. And it looks like this is Amity and the OSMS teachers as well.
Yep, you have tonight Amity will Stacy Anderson, who is our math instructional leadership team teacher and coach, math coach, will lead us through this proposal. And this is an interesting one because it is basically taking a program that we have now and building it in a somewhat different, well, I wouldn't say different direction, same direction, only perhaps a more sophisticated program. So with that, I'll leave it to Amity and Stacy.
All right, we have been really excited to present this to you and wishing that we could get here earlier, but we're glad to be here tonight because we are very excited about this program proposal. you probably remember, many of you remember that in 2016, we brought forward other choices. We wanted to look at a program pilot for math programs. At that point, we were looking for pre-K through 8th grade. And we found that for 6th through 8th graders, there were 2 choices of programs that were independently vetted as both standards aligned and as receiving high marks for the quality of the mathematics that was taught in those programs. And they were CPM and Eureka. And we piloted both of those. We went through a year-long pilot and looked at all of the components and the students' performance. And we chose Eureka because we saw growth in our students, and we were very excited about that. That has continued to do us proud. We've had some significant improvements in our mathematics scores for students in grades 6 through 8. In fact, our middle school was recently featured in a statewide publication for their incredible growth. And we don't want to rock the boat on that, but we did find that when we started using Eureka, there were a couple of pieces that were slightly lacking in the program. The differentiation components exist, but they are more challenging to implement, and that is always a primary concern for us. And in addition to that, as we've moved forward with our strategic plan and the 21st century skills rubrics, particularly at the middle school, we found that Eureka really didn't have a focus on those 21st century skills. It just wasn't built into the program. So we, teachers went looking for some opportunities for more student collaboration and some differentiation resources. And in doing that, they stumbled upon a program called Open Up. It is also called, the same program has another name called Illustrative Math. They are the same program. They're referred to as Open Up IM. And those course materials were exciting to the teachers because they required a lot of problem solving, a lot of student collaboration, and a lot of deeper thought about mathematics and less of an emphasis on algorithms. And so they started to use some of those materials to differentiate or to stretch the program when kids needed deeper mathematics instruction. And they just really loved what they saw in their classrooms. And then Open Up and IM were also independently reviewed by the same source that had reviewed the other 2 programs and actually got just slightly higher marks than Eureka, particularly in usability. The mathematics scored exactly the same, but in how it could be used in the classroom, Open Up and IM had slightly better scores by the independent reviewer. And so then we really started to talk about, so what do we do now? And that leads us here tonight to this program proposal for you. Stacy? Stace?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
We can, yes.
Emily, can you let us know when you switch slides? Thanks.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just switched to slide 2 just now.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here tonight to share this program proposal with you. On slide 2 here, I'm going to talk a little bit about our rationale for moving this forward to you. We knew we had a solid program with Eureka. It provides a strong foundation for teaching and learning mathematics, and our students have experienced success with it. As Amity mentioned, as teachers moved into year 3 of using our current program, Eureka, teachers were finding it necessary to supplement their teaching with additional materials in order to provide experiences that built on research and best practices in math teaching and learning. And this is really to be mindful of district and building goals and to incorporate 21st century skills. The content and math models taught with Eureka are strong. However, teachers were finding a real need for students to interact with and apply math learning in a different way. And this is why we're bringing this proposal before you tonight. We're ready to go on to slide 3.
Yes. So in moving on to slide 3, these are the connections to the strategic plan. And really the most significant connections are both with goals 1 and goals 2. Obviously, this is a curricular program, and it is a very strong, well-developed, state-of-the-art program. And in addition to that, the instructional design here is what we're trying to tweak. So the instructional design in Eureka is excellent mathematically, but then in terms of actually the nuts and bolts of teaching it in the classroom, we are finding that illustrative math and open up, that is a slightly stronger instructional design in terms of how it relates to our goals as a district. And particularly because of the differentiation pieces and because of the 21st century skills. Moving on to slide 4.
And just adding to what Amity shared about connections to the strategic plan, we wanted to be really mindful of the Old Saybrook Middle School building goals, as they are the foundation of the teaching and learning there. The 3 building goals on this slide summarize the Old Saybrook Middle School building goals. And the theme threaded throughout all 3 goals is really increasing student ownership through engagement, and growth in a curriculum, instructional and assessment lens. The Open Up and IM resources incorporate both teacher and student learning targets. And this allows for increased student engagement, self-reflection, and self-assessment. And this is done through 4 phases of work in each lesson. So each lesson starts off with a launch, where the context for math learning and practices is presented. It moves on to a work phase, where students are provided with practice and exploration. They engage in this through a variety of settings, alone, in partnerships, in group work. And then moving on to an opportunity to synthesize and summarize and make meaning of the work they've done throughout the lesson. And finally, moving to an assessment piece, the cool down provides an opportunity for further application of skill and an opportunity for reflection for both the student and for teachers as well. And this brings us to the 5th slide. So we knew we needed more information. Based on our growing experiences using the Open Up IM resources, we knew that Ed Reports had given this program strong reviews, but we wanted to look a little closer. So we used an independent assessment published by Smarter Balance. They're called interim assessments. And we use these prior to introducing a new concept or topic, and then we use them again at the end. And on this slide here, you can see the results of that. So grade 6 and 7 teachers selected one unit or topic to teach with one of their classes, and used the current program Eureka with the other classes. And with grade 6, we found the data showed no difference really between the class using Open Up and IM or the classes using Eureka. But in grade 7, we noticed that the class using Open Up and IM did slightly better. And this was a little bit of a surprise for us at first. As we thought about it, we realized it was a small snapshot of time. We wondered if the difference between the 2 programs was more about the learning opportunities students were engaged in. And in order to look at that more closely, we decided to utilize the district's Domain 3 feedback tool. We had hoped to have a handout for you if we were meeting face-to-face. But we used this as I went into classrooms and observed and worked with teachers with both the Eureka and Open Up lessons, just to see how it compared to our district's theory of action of good teaching and learning. And this is where we saw a more significant difference between the 2 programs. We saw further evidence of exemplary teaching. We saw more opportunity for student engagement and rigorous learning and 21st century skills. We saw more opportunities for differentiation, more communication, more risk-taking, which was all really exciting for us to see.
And I have to just say here, anecdotally, I went into one of the classes during an Open Up lesson, And I walked in and I stood there for just a few minutes and I looked at the teacher and I said, oh, this is it. This is what you mean when you say that this program is so much more powerful for students. The conversations that students were having about math were just deeper than what I was seeing in the other classrooms. So I wish that there were a way, we thought about a million different ways to be able to sort of bring you to that classroom. And in reality, we have to ask you to please just trust us that it really is a very different environment in terms of what students are able to do. There are challenges here. The first challenge is that this is a new curriculum for students and teachers. Obviously, our teachers have piloted this curriculum and they're very comfortable with it. They're very excited about it. And actually, our students have used pieces and parts of it along the way. I have to say that the teachers report that the students have no trouble moving across programs. That's really, it seems to be much more of an adult issue than a kid issue. But as always, any new curricular adoption does have concerns and issues. Training for teachers is probably the biggest of those issues here. We had a training that we were tentatively reserving spots for pending board approval of this program, and since that was an early March meeting that we were going to be at, these were late April training sessions that we were sort of holding slots for pending your approval. And then, of course, all of that changed and that training is not being offered. So we will have to, if you approve this move, we'll have to find other ways to train teachers and to make sure that we can get everybody in the right spot to be able to teach it in the fall. Additionally, our high school teachers were very interested in being trained as well. And that's exciting for us because there are follow-up components in this particular program that are courses at the high school level. So the fact that they're interested in understanding what middle school is doing and potentially attending that training is very exciting for us. Moving on to slide 7.
Now that takes us to some of the successes that we've recognized so far. The first being that I think this is an example of how teachers are really internalizing district strategic plan, building goals, and theory of action for advanced learning. They're kind of thinking about what they're doing in the classroom and how it fits into the goals of our district. And I think that that's really exciting. In addition, to see an increase in student engagement and the use of 21st century skills in a mathematics classroom is very exciting. And lastly, this is slide 8. Our next steps, as Amity spoke about before, we need to make sure that we can find training for teachers and coaches. We need to make sure that we share with parents and colleagues about this great program and what the mathematics classroom will look like should we move forward to adopt it. And then I really am excited about the work that I would be involved in as we would implement a program like this, being able to be in classrooms regularly and helping to regularly plan for and respond to student needs. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this program proposal with you. I'd be happy to answer any questions or do my best to answer questions at this time.
May I do the question? It's Karen, may I? It's Karen?
Yep, go right ahead, Karen.
Okay, just a question about the next step of training for teachers and coaches. You mentioned it might be difficult. Would we have our own teachers providing the training for the whole staff, or are we outsourcing that? Is that what you typically would do?
It's an interesting challenge because what Stacy would go to training and potentially bring a couple of people with her, and then they would come back and train others in the district. Our plan for this particular program was to train the teachers who would be using it most immediately. So our 6 through 8 teachers, that's 3 teachers, and then high school teachers if they were interested, and of course Stacy, and they would be able to hone their work throughout the year together.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Amity and Stacy?
Yes, it's Eileen Baker.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Thanks so much. Terrific presentation and some wonderful, wonderful
and careful research to be able to take a look at Eureka and to take a look at the Open Up Math. So there's something that you were both able to see that would really strengthen our students' understanding and ability to have a conversation about mathematics, which isn't normally the way things are, but it's the way of the future. And that's very, very exciting. And congratulations on this. I also am thrilled that high school is taking a look. We have a small district, and it's wonderful for the high school or for the entire district to see what students are exposed to and what they're coming into the high school with. That really enables a high school math curriculum just to have a greater understanding of K-12. And that, I think, is really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really have to commend Stacy here, because Stacy has done an amazing job stepping into the role of the coach and really bringing together the whole team. And I'm not sure that under any other circumstances, our high school team would have been as interested. Traditionally, high school teams are not as interested in what the middle school is doing. And I know that my colleagues struggle with that, but Stacy's been able to create the environment where the high school teachers are very interested. So kudos to her work.
I have a quick question, Stacey and Amy. So this will replace the current Eureka Math program?
Yes, that is the plan. We would continue, obviously, to utilize the best of both worlds. You know, some of the things that they wouldn't want to lose from Eureka, they certainly would still be able to utilize as resources, but our primary resource would be Open Up IM.
Great, thank you. That was my only question. Other questions for Amity and Stacy?
This is George.
Go ahead, George.
So again, just echoing what people said, great presentation. Thank you very much. I think, Amity, I appreciate your comment about the qualitative view when you went to visit classrooms in terms of how engaged the students are, and that's invaluable. And so I appreciate that. And but I did have one quick question about the comparison you guys made with the grade 6 and grade 7 class, where in this case you guys try to be a little bit more quantitative. And I was just curious that in grade 6 there were essentially almost no difference between the Eureka versus the Open Up cohort, but in grade 7 there was in my opinion, pretty substantial difference between 51% on Eureka versus 67% on the Open Up. I was just wondering whether you guys had a chance to take a look at that cohort, whether this group, the 51% versus the 67%, how do they do in 6th grade in terms of the standards? I mean, if the two groups were the same, and they showed a difference a year later, and that's pretty significant. But without knowing the baseline, you'd be curious to know what the baseline was going into 7th grade.
George, it would have been neat to be able to take those kids. That's something that we probably should have done, is to look at their prior performance. They were chosen by their teachers. Those particular classes were chosen as sort of the most typical classes. And that's how they sort of got the position of being the class who got the treatment, is that they were most representative of the overall other classes. So their growth, I do believe, was more significant. I think the difference that we see in 6th grade to 7th grade is the comfort level of the teacher with the true differentiation and support to really extreme levels. That happens to be a particular strength of our 6th grade teacher. And so I think that even though it's not necessarily as built into the program, that happens to be something that teacher does extremely well. But I also think it speaks loudly to what Ed Reports found in their independent review of these programs, which is the math really is the same. It's really high quality math, and it's pretty much the same across the two programs. That it really is about the way that the program is instructed and the kind of mathematical thinking that we're asking students to do that's different. So it actually is kind of reaffirming that using Ed Reports as our gold standard is a good thing to do when we go to check out a new program, because what we found locally was the same as what they told us we'd find.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
other questions? Okay, so Amity and Jan, this is another another item that requires a board vote, correct?
It does, yes.
All right. So at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the 6 through 8 math program proposal.
So moved, Karen.
All right, so we have a motion by Karen, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear who the second was.
What's that mean?
Second by Eileen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. Thank you, Andy and Stacy. That was a great presentation.
Thank you very much. Very excited about this adoption.
Awesome. All right, and so we'll move on next to an update on course offerings. And it looks like...
Can I stay in for a second? I think it's time for me to head out. Everyone have a nice day.
Awesome.
Good night, Jumbo.
Bye, jump out.
So we're into an update on course offerings, and it looks like Amity and Jan and our OSHS teachers.
Yes, so Amity is going to take lead on this, and Sheila will represent the teachers, although Dave is here and Stacy can certainly help too. But this is just really updates. These are things that we're tweaking more than overall program changes. And we're kind of calling this curriculum night and bring them all to you at once in the hope that you'll see everything. If you look at everything holistically that's been presented tonight, it is all moving in the direction that our strategic plan is taking us and all very much aligned. So Amity, I'll turn it over to you again.
All right. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is indeed curriculum night. And as you can see, this was intended to be a presentation that was offered by a number of teachers who've made some wonderful changes. And I'm just here representing all of those folks tonight. So the purpose of a lot of these changes was exactly as Jan said. Our curriculum is changing and growing in the exciting ways that we hoped that the strategic plan would take it. We are looking to constantly review what we're doing and make sure that we're able to personalize everything. And we're finding more and more that teachers are expecting to personalize their courses, and they want to do that. So they're not truly changing the curriculum drastically, but they are looking at the way that they're delivering it. And that's what everything that you'll see in this presentation does. Our connections to the strategic plan are, of course, 1 and 2, which are curriculum and instruction. These are revisions, small revisions to the curriculum, but mostly instructional design that will be changing about most of these courses. The first one is global science and citizenship, and I will invite Mr. Plotkin to jump in because he's the one who did this work with a team of social studies and another science teacher. They looked at making global citizenship and earth science into a combined interdisciplinary pair of courses. So these will still be 2 full credits, 1 social studies and 1 science, and they'll still fulfill the requirements that students will need. But if students choose these sections of these courses, they will be able to sort of get this interdisciplinary look. And if you look down to the 3rd bullet point, you'll see the cross-curricular units of study. They had me at the big picture in you. I don't know about anybody else, but the big picture in you, and they talk about the Big Bang there, but they also talk about who students are as citizens of a global society. And if you just look at their main themes for the course, global sustainability, Earth's history then and now, Earth's conflict and cooperation, you can see why these 2 courses that may not necessarily initially look like a good match turn out to be a really good match when you get the right people in the room and looking at those parts. It will be a project-based kind of a course or 2 courses, and they have looked at how they can co-teach these classes and sort of move in and out of each other's worlds, but and shift the time. So when one of the 2 of them, when social studies needs more time, then science would maybe give up a lab period, or if science needed more time, then social studies would maybe give up a class for that week. So, and they work beautifully together. Their energy is amazing. I have no doubt that this will be an exciting opportunity for kids. And when kids finish this course, they'll end up with their 2 full credits, 1 social studies, 1 science, but hopefully they'll be able to see how all of these pieces are interconnected. The next one's even simpler. It's just a revision. It's Intro to Baking and Intro to Cooking. Those had been Culinary 1 and 2, and our culinary teacher found that kids really either liked cooking or liked baking. Some kids like both, but many kids wanted to concentrate on one or the other. And really, she was looking for personalization through specialization. She also said that there is some cost savings, which we always love that. When she is able to purchase all of her cooking supplies during one semester and all of her baking supplies during another semester. That can be very helpful to the bottom line. These courses used to be one credit for a full year, and now these will each be 0.5 credits. Students can take either or both, and they can take them in any order. So if you wanted to take, if Intro to Cooking happens in the spring, and you didn't join the class until then as a sophomore, then in your junior year in the fall, you could take Intro to Baking, or you could take them in the order that they've traditionally been taken, fall for baking and cooking in the spring. So again, minor change, but just really focused on personalization. And then, as you know, you've heard us talk about the African American and Latino Studies course, which the House bill did put this into law. We have to teach this class next year, but the state's not going to share their mandated curriculum until the following year. So we need to create this course to be in line with state mandates. And right now, we're looking at 2 half-credit integrated humanities courses. So again, looking at interdisciplinary teaching and learning and co-teaching, because we find that that's a very rich environment for students. This will be taught by a social studies teacher because by law it has to be, but also will be co-taught by other teachers, probably humanities teachers. And since the state curriculum won't be released until 2020, 2021, we are looking at the open source course materials that are available from a lot of the universities. We think that universities do courses like African American and Latino Studies very well because they are able to invest in the people to write the curriculum that we may not necessarily be able to do in our little district. And they have posted some wonderful open source materials that we can borrow from liberally in writing this course. The course will be written this summer, and it'll explore the histories, cultures, and politics of African American and Latino people from the 19th century to modern times. And we're hoping that this is such an exciting course that kids love it so much and that it's so enriching for them that the state will come and look at our model and maybe use some of what we're creating this year when they release their framework the following year. And that's those are sort of the new changes. The challenges, of course, are scheduling. Scheduling is always an issue in trying to make sure that every kid gets all the interesting courses that they want access to. And then enrollment, because we're drawing on the same pool of students. So the more classes we offer, the more draw there is on that same pool. So we work very hard to substitute courses. If we're going to add a course, we take something off the plate. And then tackling personalized learning is a very challenging thing. It requires a lot of work on the part of the teacher and a lot of knowledge about pedagogy and individual students. So that is a challenge that teachers are excited to take on. Our successes are that these courses are a great representation of exactly why the strategic plan is written as it's written. This is the kind of stuff we wanted to be bringing to you. We're very proud of the moves that teachers are making toward personalized learning and toward thinking about innovative ways to work together to create interesting courses. And our next steps are to hopefully pilot all of these little changes, to gather data, and to bring that back to you and let you know how things are going in the future. We hope to bring a whole new crop of little tweaks to our current offerings that make them better and richer for kids. And I can take your questions.
Great, thank you, Amity.
This is Jan. Amity, the course that you mentioned that's being co-taught by 2 teachers?
Yes.
Are those 2 teachers in the room at the same time, or do they alternate?
So that's one of the things that we've talked a lot about. What we have defaulted to is that potentially they're in the room at the same time if they happen to have an overlapping prep period. But this is, we aren't adding FTEs to make this happen. This is, not two teachers in the room together all the time. This is just an opportunity for them to plan together and occasionally to be in one another's classrooms, but doing that using their planning periods.
So, and I don't know if you can answer this yet, how would that work in terms of how does that count toward teachers' class load, for lack of a better word?
Right. And we actually did a lot of thinking about that. And that's why each teacher would still be assigned to his or her own courses. And they would not be doubly assigned to the same course in this particular situation. So, and a lot of that in Connecticut is how we label it in a system called EDS, the Educator Data System. So, of course, our first goal is always accuracy and transparency, but we can list two teachers teaching the same course and that system would not reject that. That isn't our plan here, but that is an option for us for another situation.
Can I add just something to that too? I think the other piece that will make that course unique, and right now we have enough requests for one section of the global science and citizenship, and the goal is to put those classes back to back with one another. So at the very least, the teachers teaching separately can overlap when needed, even if just for a few minutes. But we're excited to see that cohort move together into two class periods, if you will.
Other questions for Amity on these?
This is a comment. It's Eileen Baker.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I wanted to say that in terms of the African American and Latino Studies course, while we're looking at personalizing it for students, it's obviously with the cross-section of teachers that are going to be writing the course, it's also a cross-section and personalization of staff. So the fact that you have Jeremy Taylor, who's probably going to be infusing things like music and culture. Is Shane Munez the Spanish teacher?
Yes, Shane teaches Spanish, and you're right, Jeremy had a lot of these ideas.
Yep. And John Glover, is that an English person or social studies?
He's social studies. He's our social studies instructional leader.
Yeah. So I just think that's, a really exciting opportunity for personalization of not only students, but for staff. And that really is a good modeling for kids to see that one person really doesn't necessarily have all the information, but it's really blended. And I think that's a great opportunity for students to realize that they too can offer information and work in teams. The other question that I have, and I just don't remember, was Earth Science a class at the middle school in the 8th grade?
It was at one point. It was, I want to say 3 years ago, but I'm not 100% sure that I'm accurate on that we moved that course.
And the only reason I'm mentioning it is if I remember, there was something at the middle school that in order to even take an earth science course, you had to pass some type of assessment. So it looks like there's still physical science in the middle school. Is that right?
There it is. And Dave, you can jump in here because you know this better than I.
Yeah, that 8th grade year right now is, the curriculum is heavy on the physical science.
Okay, so then all students take physical science in the 8th grade?
Yes.
Okay, so that's different and that's great. So then when they get to the high school, there's an opportunity now for all students to take earth science. This will just be, a collaborative class.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks so very much. Really opens it up and doesn't delineate, any type of grading system in order to take these classes, which is terrific. Thank you again.
If I could, this is Jan Ferruccio. Eileen, I know you're always someone who really highlighted the tracking that we had there, and that was something that was addressed through this process by the science teachers and by Mr. Goff. So I think this just continues to develop that, keeping it wide open and differentiating for all students. Again, very much in line with the strategic plan.
Fantastic. Thank you. Exactly right, Jan. Yep.
Other questions for Amity?
I had a quick question about this is George.
Go ahead, George.
I had a quick question about the African American study, Latino study course. So my understanding is that that this is a state mandated course, but it's not required for students to take this.
Correct. So we are required to offer it, and actually, we're not even required to run it. We're just required to offer it. But we are hoping to make it so enticing to kids that they want to take it, because we would love to be able to run it. We think it's something that our students would benefit from.
The same question to Sheila. Are there any indications of people signing up for the fall for these two classes?
The course had not been completed yet, George. So it's one that after the description is written, we're going to, midsummer leading into the fall, we're going to, make sure that students know that that's an option. So it's actually, it has to fit into the master schedule somehow. We'll probably pilot it with one section, and I have no doubt that we'll be able to fill it.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Other questions?
No, it's just a comment, Eileen Baker. I was going to say that Jeremy Taylor and the music department over time have always been very eclectic and sensitive to introducing students to music from various parts of the world, which include African American and Latino countries.
Thanks, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Are there questions for Amity on this? So Amity and Jan, is this one that requires board approval, or is this just an update?
These are really just updates. I mean, you certainly could approve the African American Latino. It is a state requirement to have it. If you want to approve it just as we're offering it, that would be wonderful to have on record, but the others are just updates.
Okay. Well, with that said, then I will ask for a motion to approve the African American and Latino Studies course. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved. Eileen.
Moved by Eileen. Do we have a second? Second. Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. And Amity, thank you very much for the update. That was great.
Thank you all. This has been an exciting night for us.
Yeah, it was a totally curriculum night, so that was good. We should do this every year. We'll have a curriculum night. We'll have a party next time.
Yes, that sounds wonderful.
So moving on to healthy food certification, and this is Jan and Mrs. Pendleton.
Yes, and again, I'm going to ask Mrs. Pendleton, someone else to take this over. Mrs. Pendleton's going to bring this forward on behalf of Mrs. Nuzzo and our food services department. And this is something that the board does every year. This is brought to you every year, and these are sections that we're required to bring. So, Mrs. Pendleton.
All right, take it away, Mrs. Pendleton. And you're on mute.
I think I unmuted. Everyone can hear me?
Oh, yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
So yes, these are two motions that you approve every year. The first one is our healthy food certification, which is the program in which we run our food service program under right now, where we're serving those items that are on the approved list by the state and the FDA, and they're very similar. They do keep expanding them. They've gotten better over the past several years, which is wonderful. And I think that, the choices are certainly less daunting than they were when we first started. Kids heard whole wheat and wanted to run, but they're getting used to it. So this is a motion to continue in that program and receive the federal funds that we do for our food service program under the healthy food certification.
Great, thank you, Julie. Any questions for Julie about this program? This is something that I know we approve every year, throwing it out there. All right, I don't hear any questions. So I'll look for a motion to approve our healthy certification program.
I'll make the motion. This is Jan.
So moved by Jan, it sounds like a second by Eileen.
Yep.
Great. All in favor, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. And along the similar vein, the next
Hey,
one
I'm
up,
sorry,
and I
Tara.
know Julie will take to, is the non-compliant beverage exemption statement.
So
Tara?
this is an exemption to the healthy food certification for those events that we hold after, it's technically a half an hour after the end of the school day at a school event, such as the concession stand at the basketball games and those types of events, where we can serve things that are technically not allowed under the healthy food certification school day, whereby we have to serve a much more restricted menu of items. So this is the exemption to be able to do that.
Great. Any questions for Julie about this? Again, this is something that we see every year.
Yep.
All right, so hearing no questions, can I get a motion to approve the non-compliant beverage exemption statement?
I'll make the motion with Jan.
All right, moved by Jan, and I didn't hear who the second was.
I can second it, Karen.
Okay, so seconded by Karen. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. Moving on to the strategic plan RFQ, and this one's yours, Jan. It doesn't say somebody else, so.
This one's actually mine, so I'll unmute. And actually, it's all of ours. As I know you expected, we are bringing forward our RFQ, which we plan to publish by the end of this week if the board supports it, to find a firm to conduct the strategic planning process. I think that probably everybody in this virtual room has heard so much about strategic planning or has been so involved in strategic planning, even each of us could run it ourselves. But that's probably not the best way to go when you're trying to get objective and honest feedback from the community, all stakeholders in the community. And so it is our recommendation that we go ahead and try to hire a firm that would conduct the process of collecting the data and disaggregating the data and helping us put that data into buckets, that information into buckets, so we could set new goals for the next 5-year strategic plan. So our timeline would be to publish the RFQ, which is pretty much ready to go. We'll do one more reading of it before it goes out, and it is in your book tonight. We would go with a May 18th deadline for submission so that we could hire, hopefully get the Board of Education to interview a few firms who move forward, and then hire a firm to run the process and get them on board prior to July 1st so that before the academic year is over and some of our folks scatter to the wind, which I would imagine people are anxious to do this year, although I don't know where they're scattering to, we would at least have some opportunity to get that done. And I can go through any part of the RFQ that you want. Mrs. Pendleton and I put it together with some input from Ms. Goss. And we think it does reflect Old Saybrook and the direction that Old Saybrook Public Schools has taken.
So question.
Yeah.
I have a question. It's Amy Baker.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Yep. So Jan, who did our last strategic plan? Betty?
It was NASDAQ and it was Betty Osga. The firm was NASDAQ.
Yep. And so is that firm still doing strategic plans?
I believe they are.
And so how did they learn if the team felt very positive about NASDAQ, how do we let them know that, we would be interested in receiving a proposal?
Well, we'll meet our requirements to publish this publicly, but we'll also share it with our educational groups like CAPS and CABE, and organizations like NASDAQ are in constant contact with them.
Okay.
Other questions for Jan about the process or the RFP or RFQ?
Jan, it's Karina. I'm just curious, how many bidders or consultant firms do you anticipate will submit bids? I wasn't, of course, on the board the last time we went through this process, but just curious about.
We actually didn't put this through a bidding process last time. We invited firms in. We made firms aware, and we had 2 that actually submitted and were interviewed by the board.
Great.
Jan?
Thank you.
Question, Tara?
Go ahead, Alan. Thank you.
So, Jan, in terms of the RFP versus the RFQ, so this doesn't require you to award to the lowest bidder if it was an RFP, for example. This is an RFQ, so it gives you more flexibility in terms of selection. Is that right?
That's partly right, and it's partly about dollar amount too. Mrs. Pendleton, can you explain a little bit more detail the difference between RFQ and an RFP? RFP I know is more formal.
You're on mute, Julie, just in case you're wondering why no one's commenting.
Oh, sorry about that. I forget if Trent is in control of muting and unmuting. I guess we have to do our own. So what I was saying is a RFP is definitely a formal proposal with a cost delineated for the services that you are asking. For an RFQ, you're asking for their qualifications, and then you negotiate once you've selected the firm that you believe has the qualifications that you are interested in pursuing, and then you come up with your fee for that, or they come up with a fee for those qualifications. So it allows you more latitude, Alan. I think you were definitely kind of summarizing it correctly. It allows you more latitude for the dollar amount, and it gives you qualifications as the number one priority over price, if you will. You want the qualified firm to provide the services you're looking for.
Julie, it's Jan. In an RFQ, do they give you a range of their costs?
Yes, typically during the interview process, that would be one of the questions that you would ask. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karina. Question?
Oh, I heard 2 people there. I heard both Karen and Karina. Karen, you want to go ahead first?
Karen. Sure. Just a quick question for Jan. Looking at your timeline, May 26th, board interviews. How do you envision that? Just a virtual interview seems very difficult to manage. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I leave some of that up to the board, but I was envisioning a virtual interview. Whether you want that to be the full board or to be an interview committee would be up to the executive board to decide. But that is what I was imagining. I think that we're growing very accustomed to conducting interviews and to being interviewed virtually, and I think some of these folks are also quite used to it as well, Karen.
So I think that one would probably have to be, whether it's Zoom or I'm not completely familiar with all the other options. You want a visual. I mean, that's a critical piece when you're.
I would agree.
Stuff. I agree.
Yeah, we've become very comfortable. The one that Karen, that you and I used today was Google Chat, and that would accommodate a relatively small group. But the Google Hangout or the Google Meet, I think, accommodates up to 250. So we certainly have the capability right at our fingertips to do something a little bit easier that allow everyone to see each other.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I also think we need to do, if we're going to participate, we need a training ahead of time to make sure we can all get on and see what we need to see.
Yeah, Trent and I will work that out, Eileen. We'll come up with something.
This is Alan.
Hold on a second, Alan. Karina was up next.
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry. Just a quick comment / question. In the supporting RFQ documentation, it describes RFP within the body of it. And so I just want to ensure that we're using the correct documentation, you know, for what it is that we're reviewing, I guess. It's entitled RFQ, but within it, it refers to the RFP. And so
we'll fix that. Once again, Karina, it was only read by 5 people, so we'll fix it. Thank you very much. We'll make sure it says RFQ throughout. We'll fix that. Thank you for picking up. And I actually said I don't want Karina to be able to find one mistake in this.
I have a bad reputation.
No, that's not a bad reputation. That's a good reputation. I'm editing for you.
Go ahead, Alan. You had a question?
Oh, that was actually my comment. And also, in terms of the process, I'm very interested in participating if we get to a selection of a board committee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alan. So, Gina, I have just one question myself. How many companies are out there that do this? I don't understand kind of the size of the field. So just an idea. It sounds like we had 2 people that were engaged last time, or 2 entities engaged last time when you guys did this. Is this a market that's grown? Is there a lot of companies out there that do this kind of work?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I don't think there are a lot of companies that do the kind of work that we did last time. Our process is a very streamlined, but maybe things have changed since then. Our process is very streamlined, very education focused, and it's heavily laden. The people that I'm thinking of that I'm hoping will apply and will be considered are either people who are involved in education, as in public education, or it's a combination of higher education and public education, municipal leaders who really understand the context of the kind of planning that we do and the environment that that plan is going to live in, because that plan will be have so many things that will bombard it, you know, with financial issues and, school shutdowns and all the possibilities of things that could really impact it. And so they help you structure a plan that is both a little bit Teflon and also a little bit flexible. So I'm hoping that those are the people who are going to apply. And I don't think that's a large group. I don't think we're going to get lots of applications. I honestly think the board will probably end up interviewing the same number of interviewed last time, 2 or maybe 3 companies.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that, Jen. I was just curious. It's not a field I'm very familiar with.
Right.
Other questions on this?
This is Karen, and I just want to follow up on that if I may. And other board members who were here can help with my memory, but I think we had certainly more applications than just the 2 that we interviewed. I think we narrowed down the scope and, just brought 2 to the board. But Jan, do you recall? I think we had more than 2 applicants.
I think we only had 3, Karen.
I think so too. 3.
Yeah, I think we only had 3, and 1 did not meet our expectations.
Okay, because I do remember sort of going through a screening process and coming up with 2. Okay, yeah, so
right.
It's not a lot, but
right.
Yeah. But there was a big difference in the interviewing between those 2 agencies.
Yes, yeah. I think 1 was far more accustomed to doing that sort of process.
Much more professional.
Yeah, and as I said, and I think strategic planning has caught up, because we wanted to do a very streamlined, very focused, and I wouldn't say rushed, but quick moving so that it didn't linger. And we were very fortunate that before I got here, the Board of Education, the superintendent, wrote a very good mission statement that you had written with the help of the community. And because that was such a good guiding post, there really wasn't a significant amount of tweaking that needed to be done there, and it really gave us good structure and good direction. So, and I would imagine that we're not going to see a heck of a lot of change this time either in that. I think that we just need to go farther down the road. At least that's my vision of things, but they're going to come in and tell us how we're being perceived and what input people have for us, and that will include you administrators, teachers, other staff members, parents, community members at large, elected officials, all the constituents, all the stakeholder groups that have a vested interest in the success of the school district.
Other questions or comments for Jan about this process?
I just want to make a comment that, I think Jen made a reference that the last strategic plan that we had, hold on a second, please. Sorry.
That is not just me, George.
So the last, I think Jen made a comment that the last strategic plan that we had was very streamlined, and I think it worked very, very well. And I think the implication is that this will be another streamlined process again, which I definitely support. And so I don't remember if Alan Hylaw was around during the last strategic plan process, but the board participation was actually there, but it was a group participation. And it was, again, I think I remember, maybe one day at most. And so definitely a very streamlined process, very different than the one that we had, 2 back, where it was oh my gosh, I remember, 3-day event that was forever. So very different.
I'll vote for the former, George, versus the latter, the 1 day versus the 3-day. Thank you.
Right.
Great. Jan, is this something that requires board approval?
Yes, please.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve moving forward with the strategic plan RFQ.
So moved, Alan?
Moved by Alan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Jan.
Jan, second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. Thank you, guys. Next up is a policy amendment in regards to meeting conduct. And I think, Jan, both you and I can take this one. This is in regards to allowing our Series 9000 meeting conduct, striking the part where telephonic participation is not permitted for any items listed under executive session. Obviously, in a time when we can't meet in person, doing executive session over a WebEx or over an audio conference is going to be necessary. So, Jan, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I just want to share for board members who weren't here when this policy was adopted. There was concern about telephonic participation. At that time, we were concerned that we could not feel that we would be assured that we were always going to be in private. And as you know, an executive session needs to be held in the utmost confidence. We're not supposed to talk about what happens in executive session even after executive session is over. So that is the reason why it was there. So the board may want to consider putting this language back when life returns to normal. Simply because it is hard. I know, look at all of us tonight. I think I've had someone walk in and out of my office, and it's very hard to say for sure that we can keep things confidential. But obviously, we can't function and have executive sessions this spring, which we absolutely need for a number of reasons, without removing this language. That's it. It's just a cautionary tale that while this language is removed and we're having executive session from our homes, it'll be up to each and every one of us to, be able to keep it confidential.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with this. Who had a question?
Yeah. No, this is Eileen Baker. I had a chance to touch base with Trent when I saw this on the policy. And so he indicated that obviously due to the situation, I'm sure maybe Jan would agree, with the virus, that there are many policies that we've taken the liberty to adapt and adjust due to the timeliness of what's happening.
and that the board will have to consider reviewing those and maybe putting them back to the way they were.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Eileen. I think this is one that's likely we're going to want to roll back, or at least discuss rolling back.
Exactly right. Yep.
To meet in person again. But, to Jan's point, we don't have a choice at this juncture. We have business that we do have to conduct in executive session.
That I understand.
And as much as I'd like to stand at the end of my driveway and have the meeting there, that would be kind of cool. Now how private it would be, I've got nosy neighbors. Other questions or comments about the policy amendment and why we're making this change?
So if I can make a comment, this is George.
Go ahead, George.
So I don't think there's any debate that we need to roll this back when this virus pandemic is over. I mean, there's a lot of discussion tonight about WebEx and people who love to get on and so on. But WebEx is enterprise level, and so more secure than others. Zoom is almost forbidden to be used for any sort of meetings that need any sort of privacy whatsoever. Zoom bombing is a thing. Crashing in is almost rampant. Google Chat and so on. I don't really know what the policies are for those in terms of privacy. And so now I understand that people are having problems with WebEx, but in terms of trying to keep it private, and we are going to have an executive session, or even interviews of companies, unfortunately, we need to somehow make WebEx work because it's probably the most enterprise level for teleconference. Some people mentioned Microsoft Teams. That is possible, but the learning curve for that is not trivial.
May I just,
George, I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear you, George.
Oh, I heard. So is there somebody else that had a question though?
I would like to say something. This is Jan. I'd like to say something to support what George just said. I know WebEx is a little bit more complex, but our IT director, who is keeping us safe from all kinds of hacking when others have experienced it, he highly recommends WebEx. There is one other platform that he's allowed us to use with parents. Google has become student data privacy compliant, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's invulnerable to hacking. Of course, nothing's invulnerable, but WebEx is what has come recommended from our IT director. So if we're going to change to something else and have sensitive conversations, I would want to include him in his thoughts.
I mean, I certainly don't have a problem with going with what he recommends. Maybe what we need to do is somehow have, I don't know if we want to call them test runs in the afternoon where he can help walk us through whatever it is that we're experiencing so that when the meeting comes, we're all on. We're all sitting here as islands with no tech support. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah.
We can do that, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe that, we'll need to work on the technology piece of it, but, I also agree with George. WebEx is an enterprise grade product. It's the only meeting product that my company will allow us to use, certainly. And I think especially in terms of executive session, it's clear that we need something that's quite secure. So, but I do agree, I heard Eileen loud and clear at the beginning of the meeting and, kind of seconded by everybody else. I think we do need some sort of, over the phone help desk kind of support prior to the meeting as a dry run. And maybe we can pick some times. I know people are working and, have other commitments. So maybe we can try to pick some different times throughout the day to make that, something that works for everybody, to get some kind of one-on-one support to get that up and working before our next meeting.
In fact,
I wonder if I might make a suggestion too around the training aspect, because this is what I do for my bread and butter. Right. Is that we typically put together tip sheets that have screenshots and instructions, and maybe in advance of any over the phone support, it could be helpful to do some screenshots on a tip sheet to send out to folks who could try on their own, and then and then follow up. And I do agree by sending the link out much earlier than, 30 minutes ahead of time can be helpful because it adds time pressure when it's right in front of the start of the meeting. I don't know what the requirements are around that, but that could be helpful.
No, it's a great idea, Karina. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
We may also be able to have our IT folks remote in and actually provide tech support in real time, since you're using the Saybrook site.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Other questions or comments in regards to the reasoning and policy amendment that we're requesting this evening? All right, then with that, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the changes to the Series 9000 meeting conduct.
So moved.
Moved by Eileen. Do we have a second?
Second.
I second, Cindy. I heard Cindy, the loudest there. Seconded by Cindy. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Jim, you're muted, just so if you wanted to say aye. And any abstentions? And any opposed? All right, so that sounds like
thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Next up on the agenda is the evaluation process for the superintendent for the 2019-2020 school year. And I didn't know, Karen, if you wanted to take this or Jan.
Sure. Yeah, Jan, I'll take this. So earlier, now I don't know if everybody got the email I sent out this afternoon. It was a little late in the game, I understand. Can you let me know if you were able to read that?
I got it.
Yeah,
I got it and I could read it.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So just to give a quick summary. So, and we did get, Tara did communicate with Rebecca and got her advice on how to proceed with this. And we all felt it was critically important to continue conducting an evaluation for Jan. I think especially in light of, how she's been managing this pandemic. So we've moved up the timeline, as you can see. We're eliminating the Q&A that would be held on May 12th. That will actually be the final summary. I think Trent will be able to repost the information that Jan presented to us on our self-evaluation. It was very in-depth. It gave us a lot of feedback regarding her performance. So having that in front of us, and then we'll continue with our standard practice of emailing the rating document in question to both myself and Trent. And then clearly we just amended the policy so we can conduct the actual summative evaluation remotely in executive session. So that being said, after this meeting, let Trent know that he can go ahead and post all pertinent materials to our notebook, but tomorrow, and then give you guys a week to complete everything. And let's say by the next week would be next Wednesday, May 6th, if everything can be submitted, then that will give us a couple days to sort of clean it up and get our act together and prepare for Jan's evaluation on the 12th. In the meantime, Jan will be able to review everybody's documents and then present to us her contract request. And as I said in the memo, any questions relating to that, you can direct to Tara. And the plan is on May 12th to just to be able to conduct the evaluation and hopefully approve her contract request. Any questions?
So any questions about the process?
Is there a way that they can post last year's evaluation?
Yeah, I think Karen, we could put that up under the board, the executive.
That can be one of the pieces of information, sure.
Okay, thank you.
If you guys actually go into the executive session section of your notebooks, I believe all that information is still posted there. Everything from the last 2 or 3 evaluations is still up there. I can move everything to one place for the next meeting, but if you want to take a look at it before I get a chance to post things up there, those materials are still available.
Great, thank you, Trent.
So this is George.
Go ahead, George.
So I just want to just add on to a few things that Karen said and maybe to clarify a few points. And so essentially in the past, right, the evaluation was a 2-step process where in one of the meetings, Jan will give her self-evaluation, and the second meeting, and then at the time, the board has an opportunity to ask Jan questions and clarification questions and so on. But the second meeting, then prior to the second meeting, the board writes our evaluation if it's a trend, and at the second meeting, there's essentially a summary of what everybody's written. And just to confirm then that the document that we'll be turning in on May 6th is the formal evaluation, and that is FOIable. And so just be conscious of that with whatever you write on that document. And I presume that Trent and Karen will have a chance to collate all people's documents and summarize them before the meeting on May 12th. And that's the case.
Of course.
And it feels like 6 days is pretty tight. Especially since if we need to have it by, say, even May 11th, so we have at least a day to review it before the May 12th meeting. So that doesn't give people a lot of time. Doesn't give Karen and Trent a lot of time to complete the document. So essentially, May 6th almost has to be a pretty firm deadline.
I can say with
a firm deadline, George.
I can say with confidence on my end that if all the board members are able to meet that Wednesday deadline, I should have everything up most likely before the weekend with our normal process in terms of posting things on the Friday the week before the meeting.
Great, thank you, Trent.
Thank you, Trent. And just for Karina and Cindy, I know this is only your second time through this process. This is the Word document that we completed last year. It's got, I think 5 or 6 different pages that you go through, different attributes that you're writing up your evaluation on. And to George's point, this is a document that's a public document. It's FOIable. So, usually we have a Q&A before that to kind of go over any questions or things that we might be thinking of before we commit ourselves to writing. But this year, because we're doing kind of a condensed, review process, we're kind of foregoing what would be normal kind of conversation that we would have with Jan prior to this. So if you guys have specific questions about this or the process or, questions that you'd like Jan to answer before you complete it, I would definitely recommend reaching out to her or to me or to Karen, prior to writing your evaluation. Okay, thanks. Great. Other questions, thoughts, or concerns about this? All right. So that will be at our next May 12th meeting. We'll be going over those documents. And thank you, Karen, for putting all this together, and Trent as well.
Kara?
Yes?
Yeah, because this is the Jan's evaluation, if there's a way that I know that I will need support getting on WebEx before then, because I'd like, when you're doing an evaluation, I would like to be able to see Jan when you're making your comments.
Absolutely, Eileen. So like I said, I heard loud and clear at the beginning of the meeting that we need some support and some training getting onto WebEx.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
And we'll absolutely make that happen before our next meeting.
Super, thanks so much.
You bet. All right, so with that, then we'll move on, Jan, to any kind of updates under the COVID-19 close down update.
All right, this is George.
Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
No, just a quick question about the May 12th meeting. Will there be any other agenda items on that day besides?
George, I can't hear you.
Yeah, you're a little, George. Sorry.
Little muffled.
All right. Will there be any other agenda items on that day on May 12th besides the evaluation?
I don't believe that we've got anything else on there, Jan. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
I may have some updates by then on graduation and summer school. If I can put them off, I will. But given, the unusual situation here, there may be some updates. It probably won't be any action items.
Great. All right. Thank you, Jan. And thanks for the question, George. It's a good question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because the other proposal is just to maybe start the meeting a little bit earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now since none of us have to commute home from work. My commute involves walking upstairs from the basement. So, yeah, so that's a duly noted, George. That's a good suggestion as well, just so we don't have to go so late. So Jan and I can talk about that.
The only thing to consider with changing the meeting time is we are within the 30 days. So we would have to make that a special meeting to change the meeting time at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Trent. All right, Jan. So if there's no other questions, take it away on our close down update.
Yeah, thank you, by the way, to the board for agreeing to conduct an evaluation this year. I really do appreciate it. I know that some boards are not doing evaluations this year because of the craziness. I really appreciate that you're jumping through significant hoops to make that happen. So I just wanted to share with the Board of Education the developments since we've been closed down, which was over a month now. It was 5 weeks we're coming up to. And I'm sure you've been reading the family and staff letters that have been going out. They go out on Tuesdays. We've sort of fallen into the cycle where they go out on Tuesdays from the buildings and then on Fridays from central office. The nice thing about these letters is, like most things we do in our district, they're very much the product of teamwork. And at the end of the day, we just try to capture the tone of the week, the progressions of things. We try to honor what people may be feeling and thinking, students, parents, teachers, and try to help us to look forward to what comes next. We try to end with an upbeat update every week. Unfortunately, our kids are still doing great things and getting lots of accolades, so it's been easy to end with an upbeat update. We are well on our way with distance learning. I would say that we have grown significantly in the area of distance learning since the middle of March. I think teachers have changed, many teachers have changed their style of instruction, their way of posting work, their way of organizing their Google Classrooms. They certainly have broadened their use of resources. And we have now begun to turn our focus to culture and climate issues. So the middle school has been having X-block time meetings with their classes so that there's an opportunity for students and teachers to kind of fill in the gaps of what they're missing most, which is connections with each other. The high school has had 2 or 3 class meetings and will conduct more. We've been holding parent meetings. The middle school had a parent meeting today. Goodwin is supposed to have one Friday. The high school has an all-parent meeting tomorrow, and then senior parents and senior students again on Thursday, just to talk about issues that are impacting this class of 2020 so significantly. I don't know, Mrs. Glass, I know is still on. I think we have a couple of teachers still on. I don't know if you want to add anything in a report to the board just off the cuff. I don't mean to put you on the spot, nothing prepared, just about distance learning and any progression, changes, anything you've experienced. Dave, Stacy, Amity?
Sure, Jan, I have noticed a very clear progression toward a focus on the priority standards. So that's always been something that's been a challenge for us in the 5 years that I've been back in district. And I think people are really understanding the purpose of those standards. They are the standards that students are required to have in order to be successful in the next course or the next grade level. And I don't think it's ever been as meaningful as it is right now. I think people are really understanding those are the things that kids need to walk out of those classrooms with, or walk out of their digital classroom with at the end of the year. And I think that it's provided a really clear focus for us. And our instructional leadership team has done a great job making sure that we're mapping all of those standards, and anything that we might not be speaking is a standard, and particularly at the primary level, we're not getting the same quality of speaking, instruction and assessment that we ordinarily would get. But other than that, there's very little that we're not doing as we would ordinarily do. And so they're documenting all of that and making sure that they're preparing for the next year's teachers.
The other thing that this laser focus on priority standards is doing for us is we have ILT teachers out there having conversations. If they haven't, they will, about they're planning to do that, about what is important. What are we all saying we're covering? What are we saying or getting to or helping students master? What are we saying may be more difficult? Because that gives us a great spot to jump off when we are back together again and when school returns to a more typical platform, which may be this summer or it may not be until fall. We hope it will be in the fall, but it allows us then to construct formative assessments in the fall that are very targeted, that don't take lots of time, and that give the next teacher a good understanding of where's the starting point for each child. Where do we need to begin our learning? And so I think it has not only, focusing on that, not only has a very sort of logistical reason for doing it, but which is not wasting time in the fall, but it also allows us to really focus on those priority standards. And I think that's going to have, we're hoping that that's going to have a positive impact moving into the future. We also are working now on PPTs and 504 meetings. They have resumed. And so our PPS department is running those meetings, and we're doing them just as we're doing these remotely. And parents and students are participating and creating IEPs that are making assumptions that we'll be back to school in the fall. We expect that in the fall, or even over the summer, we're going to have a significant number of second round meetings to adjust to changes. But we're meeting the legal requirements and also really keeping the families of our students who have 504s and IEPs engaged in school, which is not only a legal requirement, but obviously it's something morally and ethically that we want to do. We're also working on summer school preparation. We heard from the commissioner last week in a conversation with superintendents that he really thought we should be thinking along the lines of summer school being online, being continuing distance learning. We're planning to conduct regular summer school programming in this new platform. We also have been discussing and moving forward with a concept. We discussed it with ILT teachers, DLT. We wanted to discuss it with you tonight, and then we want to broaden the stakeholder group and talk more to others about the possibility of offering additional summer school programming, not by invitation, for anybody between the dates of June 17th and June 30th for credit at the high school. That would allow students to engage in some very exciting opportunities. It would allow teachers to offer some courses that would allow them to teach some of those priority standards and perhaps even some of the standards that they feel that they wanted to have more of an opportunity to work with, and allow students to catch up and feel connected. Now, we may find that everybody's exhausted and doesn't want to try this, but we want to offer it anyway. We think it's a great way to pilot some classes. It's a great way to reinforce learning, and it's a great way to keep students feeling engaged. Mrs. Goss, did you want to say anything else about that, that proposal that we're looking at there for the 17th or the 30th?
Sure. I'm really excited because we've been working for several years to try to do summer enrichment courses. And I really thought that when we threw this idea out to ILT, they were going to say, are you kidding? We're working so hard right now. There's no way to possibly get anybody to do this. But of course they didn't, because there are instructional leaders. They said, no, we have great ideas for classes and we'll teach them. And we know people in our departments will teach them. And so, you know, we talked about what on earth would kids do that would have both academic value and be exciting in those last 10 days of the, you know, of this current year. And it was amazing to me the number of creative ideas that people had. I don't know if Mr. Plotkin wants to share his idea, but he had one of the best ones I've heard. And we've also had some things like stop motion animation and some coding ideas, some 1970s in film, some ideas like that that have, you know, that both would draw students because of interest and because they have academic value. So I'm excited. I can't wait to be able to put together that course calendar.
Amity, this is Dave. I can jump in if you would like. The thing about science that's so hard in this virtual environment is you're missing that hands-on piece that's so critical to science. So my thought was we could somehow distribute kits to students that were enrolled with a supply of science materials and have it be sort of an open inquiry type of thing where you're tasked to find out something using the materials that you are given. Maybe some of the materials are extra and you don't need them, and then you share back how you use those materials in your investigation, in your scientific investigation. And I could also speak about the evolution of virtual learning from my perspective too, and that talking to colleagues, I know they shared similar experiences. That initial idea of having a Google Meet with a group of students was very intimidating, and it took me a while. But now I've gotten to the point, and I know other colleagues have done the same, where we have almost office hours, where every day during a certain time we have a drop-in period where students can just drop in to say hello or ask questions about the assignments they're working on. And then one of the things that I've experienced to take forward, and I know other colleagues have as well, is the power of individual feedback. We know providing students feedback is a critical part of the learning process. But in this environment, we really come to recognize having the time and the ability to go at such a deep level of feedback with them create such large advances in their learning. So moving forward with that idea and incorporating that even more into our instructional practices is something I look forward to, and I know some other colleagues have shared that sentiment as well.
Hey, that's go ahead, Jen.
No, it's Sheila. I just wanted to add that is something I want to echo what Dave said. Something that I am really looking forward to is the fact that teachers are really acknowledging that they're seeing some of the ways in which they can utilize the helpful pieces of this level of learning or this type of learning to supplement what we're doing in the classroom. I mean, everyone agrees that obviously this is no way we want to spend our education careers. And I think the majority of kids feel the same way. But, you know, teachers are starting to do some really cool things, and it's exciting to see.
You know, we some of you might be wondering how we would be able to make this happen financially. We are right now very fortunate that our teachers are staying healthy. We've been socially distanced long enough to have every reason to believe that we will be able to remain in good health as a staff. And there are substitute dollars that we would be able to keep right in the staffing payroll line item and be able to spend them on this sort of experience for our students, which we think is not only powerful, as Mrs. Goss said, academically appropriate, powerful, an opportunity to pilot some things, an opportunity to create a class that I wouldn't exactly call it a hybrid, but it could turn into a hybrid, you know, with the idea of Mr. Plotkin's idea of giving out testing kits for science and then having this online class. And now that our teachers are getting better and better at both synchronous and asynchronous teaching, I think that this could really hit its stride. And who knows, as Mrs. Goss said, maybe our summer academy will finally come to fruition. So that's there'll be more on that, but really what we're thinking is, you know, a class that could be, you know, 20 students, K through 6, let's say, or up to 30 students, maybe 7 through 12, but, you know, a minimum of 10. And that they wouldn't necessarily need to be all 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. It could include 8th and 9th graders. So even that could get very creative. It would depend upon the course. It would depend upon what the programming is, but it could be very exciting for everybody, and a nice opportunity for teachers to grow some a new material and for students to have this opportunity. So, as I said, looking at giving it a 0.5 credit at the high school. We have been working on graduation. As of Sunday morning, the high school administrators and I met with the chief of police about options because he's in charge of emergency management, and so would be, you know, integral to anything that we tried to do in the community for the class of 2020. And we are really working on 4 projects, and they run the gamut from we get to do a traditional graduation all the way down to everybody is still completely isolated, and Tara Barros, Sheila Riffle, and Jan Peruccio drive around in a car giving out diplomas, or drive around in multiple cars giving out diplomas to seniors. And obviously, that's not our favorite. That's not our favorite version of it. But there are 2 other plans in between that would be responsive to wherever we are in the reopening of the state at that time. So I think we're almost halfway through the number of hospital admissions that the state wanted to see, or that the federal government suggested part of the guidelines, as far as dropping numbers of numbers of people in hospital across the state. Not necessarily true for Middlesex County right now. While we're not going up, I don't think we're going down either. But you know, if we are able to hit some of the benchmarks and we're able to reopen in some ways, then we will have multiple plans in place for that. I know parents of graduates this year's class are anxious, and I completely understand everybody's anxiety. Just know that we are working on multiple versions of this so that we're ready to go as soon as we're given permission to go. And we can flex. No, we could flex to the traditional graduation. As Ms. Riffle says, they've done it so many times at the high school. They could flex to a traditional graduation, you know, probably with a week's notice. It's the others that we really have to focus and plan for, and so we are. Any questions? I have a few more things to add, but are there any questions so far?
I just have a question, but I can wait to the end. That's fine.
Okay. You know, we are continuing to work on the bus contract issue, which you probably read about in the papers. I think a lot of districts are still working to try to resolve that. And we're also looking at recovery of what does school look like post-COVID shutdown. And we have a recovery spreadsheet that we are populating, and it includes everything from what does one do for security if we're all wearing face masks to you know, what does social distancing look like if we have to social distance in classrooms, and everything in between, from academics to attendance to, you know, how do we make sure that everybody walking through our doors is healthy. So we have it all rolling forward. I think if I were to express one frustration from the administrative level, it would be that we feel like we're working on so many different versions, so many iterations to prepare for whatever comes next and whatever we're able to do, so that we can have sort of a least restrictive situation for our students. That, you know, it is lots and lots of hours of work, and administrators are working very hard to keep all of that moving forward and also trying very hard to communicate with parents and students and staff members as regularly as possible, so we don't leave anyone behind. So we're working long hours, but I really feel like between our connections at the state and local level and the communications within the community, like we're getting good information and we're doing really good work in a very difficult situation. I can't say enough about the administrators and the number of hours that they're working right now. And that's really it. Lots of details. Happy to provide any that you want to see.
Eileen Baker, I just have a question about how Goodwin School is working with families and students remotely. I know that many of the schools are doing that, but the frustration sometimes and the limitation, you know, for on-screen time for kids to be able to attend. And I wondered the feedback that you're getting from parents in terms of expectations, if they're able to moderate that and be able to have appropriate, you know, screen time for little kids, because that's a lot of time on the computer.
Yeah, I might ask, maybe Stacey Anderson can help us answer that. But I think, Eileen, again, it's been a learning process for all of us. And I think at first teachers were very concerned that they wouldn't be supplying enough work for students to do. I think we've dialed back from that and realized that everything takes longer in this environment. Ironically, everything takes longer. And the amount of concentration it takes to sit at a computer for 4 to 6 hours is a lot different than the amount of concentration it takes to go from class to class in school. With the natural interruptions in the day. But I think that the other thing that none of us really anticipated when we were closing our schools was that we weren't sending our children home for days, weeks, or months to do their schoolwork in a nice quiet room, but their parents are there and their siblings are there, and perhaps extended family has moved in. And so there was no way to control that environment. And I think we have come to the realization that those things do impact. Stacey, I don't know if you want to add anything about Goodwin and what's going on there.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I got pulled away to say goodnight to my daughters, and I came back at the tail end. Could you repeat the question?
Eileen?
No, I was just giving some perspective. Jan answered it, I think, in terms of how Goodwin School has maybe needed to roll back, if at all, in terms of expectations for younger children to be on so much screen time and, you know, dialing back a little bit of the workload that they're giving to kids.
I don't think I would say that they're having to dial it back. I think that as the weeks progress, they're kind of fine-tuning the types of assignments they're giving, at least from a math perspective. Teachers are really trying to move forward with the Bridges program as best they can. And many of them are doing that through small mini lessons, either videotaped or using the Google Slides with the voiceover, and then providing some type of task. And that's not always involving a screen. So we do have the Dreambox, which is a program that, you know, does require a screen, but I know that teachers are really cautious about the number of minutes they assign. So I think that as things have progressed, it's definitely something that's on the mind of teachers at Goodwin especially, and they're really kind of gathering feedback from parents and really trying to fine tune that so that there's a nice balance.
This is Karina. I think, Eileen, your comment is a good one with respect to screen time, but I think it's important not just for Goodwin students. I think it's an important consideration for all students, because the way these kids decompress is to get online, and they're online most of the day for school, and then they're online well into the night for social activity, and it is deeply concerning. And I wonder, Jan, I don't know if this is a comment or a question, but I wonder if there's consideration for the remote learning curriculum to include some deliberate, social, emotional, mental health awareness, because there has to be an impact. And I think we've been doing a wonderful job of moving the curriculum to remote learning, but maybe there's an opportunity even statewide, to not mandate, that's a bad word, but to incorporate some sort of, mental health screen impact consideration that this remote learning, especially, we heard earlier from our teen reps, and I think Sheila had mentioned it as well, that the kids are really missing the connections with one another. And I think there's just this stew that is being created between the absence of physical interaction with peers, as well as the massive increase with screen time. So, I don't know what we do with all that, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah. I have not, this is Jan. I have not heard anyone talking yet about problem solving or addressing screen time through schools and the socio-emotional learning component. But there's a lot of conversation about the stresses that families are going through right now, and the need for there to be a component like this for our students now, during the summer, and in the fall. I know that our counselors, our social workers continue to do outreach on a very regular basis outside of the classroom for the most part. I think at the middle school, they're also engaging in some of those meetings, those class level meetings. But we are doing our best. The handicap there is that it's very hard to assess how students are doing when you can't be in the same room with them. It's sort of like, I'm sure it's one of the reasons why there was such a lockdown on telemedicine and telemental health up until this pandemic. And the trauma piece are included in our recovery spreadsheet of things that we know we have to address. And as a matter of fact, on my to-do list for tomorrow, and I swear I didn't just write it down now, it was to reach out to see to Kathy Bai to talk about what can get started that hasn't already been started in this area.
That's great. That's really great.
Yep. You're speaking my language, and Cindy, you're speaking my language. That's what I do every day, and it is quite a challenge to deliver the type of service that I'm trying to give in a confidential way, and to really reach out to kids that had a chance to talk to me in a private, no longer. It's a challenge, but there's lots being done as far as reaching out. I know probably in Staybrook as well that a lot of the counselors are available to all the people that need them, and I'm doing that as well, reaching out and being available in any way. I mean, it's just even encouraging such things as, are you all sitting down to actually eat a meal together, or have you gotten off the screen? I do it every day. Tell them to get off the screen at a certain point. Go play Battleship with your brother at this time, and sort of trying to incorporate it into their day, because they need some help with it too. You're right. And then the adults, face it, the adults are on it just as much too. So it's hard. It's hard. It's like a whole world of that. Everybody off doing their, doing in their own bubbles on their computers, and how do you reconnect with each other and with other things and with nature, for that matter.
Yeah. And then I just have two quick questions. One is, the schools have done an amazing job of providing meals to the community. And I remember when you first embarked on this, Jan, there was a real, you paid attention, you actually sent out a survey to families to say, do you anticipate that you want to have meals, in an effort to ensure that you had the right amount of food available, and so that we didn't have any go to waste, and that we had enough to feed those who would need it. I have a sense that, so it sounds now, the way it's sort of been advertised, is that anybody can come, come one, come all. And so I'm wondering, was how did that transition occur? And, it's clearly we're doing a wonderful job feeding a lot of people. But I'm curious about that transition.
But we applied for a waiver with the state so that we would be able to get funds for the food, and that waiver requires us to open the program to children under the age of 18. And that is the only requirement, is that it's for children under the age of 18. So the program is for that demographic, and no questions asked. And yeah, I'm keeping on a daily log. I'm sure you're reading it in the nightly emergency management document. You know, we fed 369 children today. We fed 409 children yesterday. You know, the numbers started at about 100, but I can assure you that I am getting emails, I won't say on a daily basis, but multiple times a week from new families saying, I didn't need it before, but I do now. Where do I have to go to get food?
Yeah, wow. Well, I'm proud that we're part of doing that, and I know there's a lot of work that's involved in making that happen. So certainly, you know, our thanks to the staff that's doing that.
Yes, our food service staff is very dedicated. We did send them a letter. I know it's all we can do to say thank you right now in their current situation, but we did send them a letter to recognize them and let them know how much we appreciate what they're doing for the community.
Great. And then finally,
the summer, I'm sorry, it does continue through the summer because I work that program out of the library and near Goodwin School. In the gazebo, they offer the meals, same thing. Anybody under 18 who wants a meal in summer, that's available as well. So there might be a lot more in need of that. So if anybody wants to volunteer.
Right.
Yeah, Cindy, let me know if I mean Baker, I'll volunteer.
Okay, sounds good. I will.
My last question is around the grading, and I know that there's going to be a big reveal on Friday, but I'm wondering if there's any insights that you can share with us. I know that, you know, feedback I've gotten from kids and parents in the community is that they're big advocates for a grade versus pass-fail, even though schools allow for pass-fail. So I'm wondering, are you able to share with us anything around that?
Sure, absolutely. We wrote a philosophy. The philosophy that we wrote, which I can actually, and maybe Mrs. Goss has it in her email right now, and could email it to Trent, who can email it to all of you. We wrote a philosophy statement about grading at this time because we felt it was important to have a North Star. And that is the document that allowed us to move forward. And what we are planning to do is to come out with a program of grading for this quarter at the high school, for this trimester at the other two schools, that will allow for maximum flexibility for students. And so that means that certainly we'll be looking to allow students options. There are some students who are excelling at this platform, and we want to give them an opportunity to do that. And there are some students who are really struggling, either because they're struggling with this platform or they're struggling with other things going on in their lives. And so we are hoping to give as much flexibility as possible. And on Friday, we're going to explain what that flexibility will look like. And it will certainly include at the high school some pass option plus a grade option for others.
Great. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Jan on this? And I, just kind of want to keep an eye on the time as well, because we still have a couple of things to get through.
This is George, and I'll try to make this really quick.
Go ahead, George.
So just a comment in that question. So one, I appreciate your comment, Jan, about how hard your team is working, and with Sheila and Amity and David and Stacy online still. Please accept our sincere thank you for all the work you do, and please extend that to the rest of the team and the faculty as well. And my question is, I think there were many comments about assessment in terms of how students are doing during this time. And I guess my question is, has the state started thinking about waivers for the state level assessments during this time? Because I think it'll be a very unrealistic number relative to other times.
Very, very early on, George, they said there'll be no assessments for this year.
Yep.
Nice, thank you.
Other questions for Jan? Great. Thank you for the update, Jan. You know, all of us are thinking about you guys and, you know, the whole staff and the students and are concerned for their well-being and certainly yours. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are sticking together as a team, and it's good to hear that our students are, you know, engaged as well. It's good to hear from Ian and Jean Pell, certainly at the beginning of the night. That was some good perspective.
I just wanted to add just a big kudos to Jan for her weekly notes. They're incredibly comprehensive, and they're also very labor intensive, I'm sure, to write, but you write beautifully and with clarity and honesty, and they're wonderful to receive. So thank you for all of your efforts in terms of a very unsettling time.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tara, this is Sheila. May I add something there, please?
You bet.
Just briefly, Jan's leadership has been amazing, and I just need to say that to all of you. I'm in contact with a lot of colleagues in other areas, and I'm not suggesting that other districts haven't done a wonderful job, but Jan anticipated this out ahead of, I think, most districts in our area, and she thinks about things that I have no idea where it comes from, but it's inspiring. So I just wanted to say that I know you're going to be doing an evaluation soon. I know you don't need my accolades for that, but I just had to say that. And I've told Jan that as well. And I think I speak on behalf of our whole leadership team.
Thank you, Sheila. It's good to hear, especially ahead of that's really obviously heartfelt. And I certainly appreciate the feedback. I'm sure the rest of the board does as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks. So moving on, I know that we likely don't have a lot of reports for our board committees liaisons, but I will step through them pretty quickly just in case anybody's got anything for us. And George, I'll start with you from fiscal. I don't know that there's any updates, but
I don't believe so.
Okay. Figured I'd give you a shot. Eileen, do you have anything to share from a CABE perspective?
Every Friday, CABE has an opportunity from 2 to 3 o'clock for board chairs or any board members to get on and hear things that are going on the state level with the commissioner, and thoughts and ideas about regional teams and school reopening. And, you know, we're just getting a very strong sense that schools will not be reopening for the reasons Jan was mentioning, but very thoughtful and opportunity for school board members to share with the attorneys at CABE their thoughts, ideas on school bus contracts and many different topics. But they recognize that people need to have a forum, and they're providing it. And they're also providing this for non-member districts, and I think that's spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. I've managed to make it, unfortunately, just to one of those meetings because I still am working from home, but certainly they have a email distro that everybody chimes in on. It's been really helpful, and you know, even just to hear that you're not alone in these questions and quandaries that we all come up with is certainly really comforting. So
they're also archived.
Yeah,
they're also archived for anybody that wants to get on, but also they're dealing with Yale University and their social emotional their center there with Mark Brackett.
Yeah, that was really interesting actually too. So yeah, I agree with you, Eileen. It's a good thing to avail ourselves of.
Yep.
Thank you though. I don't know that we have any facilities updates, but anything from facilities?
No, nothing, Tara, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen. Jan, anything from Learn?
They did lose funding for one of their pre-K programs. I don't believe it has anything to do with our current situation. They had talked about it coming before the pandemic, and I don't believe it will affect Old Saybrook in any way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jan. Strategic planning. Any updates from strategic planning?
Well, we got that today. So
yep,
we're all set with that. Yep. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Karen. Nothing from demographics. We haven't had a chance to meet. All of our meetings got canceled, so hopefully we'll be able to get together again. You know, if not before the end of the school year, when we reconvene next year. Anything from personnel, Karen?
I gave you that update earlier. You're all set.
Yep. And Eileen, policy?
Nope. A lot of the policies, have been addressed as a group with the virus and the need to make changes. So we're good to go.
Awesome. And I have nothing to report from a chairman's perspective. Like I said earlier, when to Eileen's comment, the CAVE resources have been good to be able to tap into, just to hear what other districts are going through and kind of the decisions that they're making. But otherwise, I don't have any updates either. So with that being said, it's time for us to discuss executive session. And Jan, I imagine, obviously, we want to invite you in, and are we including Julie with this?
Yes, yep, we'll be here for the financial piece, yes.
Okay. All right. So everybody who is not a member of the Board of Education, our teachers and administrators, just want to say thank you very much for joining this evening, for your participation, your presentations. It's been good to hear about the hard work that you guys have been doing, especially under these unique and stressful times. But at this point, we're going to let you go. And I will look for a motion from the floor for entering into executive session to discuss 2 personnel issues, inviting in Jan Cruccio and Julie Pendleton.
I'll make the motion. It's Jan.
Thank you, Jan. Do we have a second?
Second, Eileen Baker.
So I heard Eileen there. Eileen is the second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. And so
Okay, we're good.
Great. Thank you, Trent. All right, so it's 10:45. We're coming out of executive session, and I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the non-certified, non-union contract and letter of employment as discussed.
I'll make that motion, Karen. Oh, okay.
Okay, so I heard
second it.
Karen made that motion and Jan Furman seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so moved. And with that, just one reminder, which is our next meeting is on May 12th, and there'll be more to follow. And also make sure that you get your evaluations into Karen, I'm sorry, by May 6th. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, moved by Eileen. It sounded like second by Jan Furman. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. All right, everybody. Have a good evening, and thank you, Julie, Jan, and Trent, for the late night.
Thank you all for your patience. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.